Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in this video, I am going to be discussing the highest and lowest rated books that I have read according to Goodreads. I saw Meg with Books do a video like this and I thought it looked interesting and like it would be fun to film. So basically in this video, I'm going to be reacting to the 5 books I've read that have the highest Goodreads ratings and the 5 books I've read that have the lowest Goodreads rating. If multiple books in the same series pop up, I'm just going to talk about the series as a whole, just so I'm not like talking about 3 different Harry Potter books. Speaking of, before I look at my shelves, let's do a little prediction. I bet at least one Harry Potter book is definitely going to be on the highest. I would assume the A Song of Ice and Fire books as well. I'm not sure what else might be there. And as for the lowest, I'm really not sure. It's probably going to be like some random young adult books that I read years ago. Actually, no, that's not true. Pamela's definitely going to be on there. That has a Goodreads rating under 3 stars. That's gotta be the lowest rated that I've ever read. I don't think anything else can even come close to touching that. So let's start off with the highest rated books that I have read. And no surprise, the highest rated book that I've ever read according to Goodreads is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which has an average rating of 4.57 stars out of 5. That is not at all surprising to me. I figured Harry Potter was going to be on there, and as you can see, Goblet of Fire, Sorcerer's Stone, also very, very high. And that is not at all surprising to me because this is a very popular series, and also, so Prisoner of Azkaban is the 3rd book in the series, and odds are if you're reading the 3rd book in a series, you really enjoyed the first 2. You usually don't continue reading a series if you're not enjoying it, so that also helps. And I will say that Prisoner of Azkaban is my personal favorite Harry Potter book, so to me personally it's not at all surprising that's the highest rated out of the ones that I've read. I have not read a Harry Potter book since 2019. I was going to finish them, but I don't know. I mean, I already physically own them, so I'm not giving J.K. Rowling any money by reading them, but I just don't really feel motivated to read them anymore because I know that she sucks as a human being. So, yeah, disappointing. Then, next up, A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. Again, not at all surprising to me for the same reasons. Very popular series. Again, this is the 3rd book in the series, so if you're reading this book, odds are you really enjoyed the first 2, and you're probably going to enjoy this one as well. This book has an average rating of 4.53 stars out of 5. Again, very, very high, and this is my personal favorite A Song of Ice and Fire book. So, like I said with Prisoner of Azkaban, I totally understand why this book is rated so highly, because I loved it. I gave this book 5 stars, my favorite in the series so far. I still have yet to read A Dance with Dragons. I low-key DNF'd it because I was kind of bored, and also I hated the Game of Thrones TV series ending so much that I'm kind of worried George R.R. Martin is going to let me down in the end if he ever gets around to finishing the series. But this book, I understand why it was rated so high, because it was incredible. One of my favorites. Alright, well, next up in the highest list is a controversial one. It's The Help by Catherine Stockett, which has a Goodreads rating of 4.46. Wow. I do still own this book. To be honest, next time I do an unhaul video, I'm probably gonna unhaul it because I'm just never gonna read this book ever again, so might as well donate it. I read this book several years ago. I think I was like 13, maybe. So God, it could have been like 9 years ago that I read this. It was a long time ago, and at the time, I think I liked it. It says on Goodreads that I gave it 4 stars, but, you know, this book, is this book the most helpful depiction of the Black experience, because while I think the author was well-intentioned and it's not a badly written story, she's also a white woman writing about the Black experience, which is something that she is never going to go through. A book that got a lot of hype once upon a time, but is definitely controversial and something that I probably wouldn't recommend people to read. I'm never going to read this book again. I liked it well enough when I was 13, but is it something that I would recommend to you now? No. No, it's not. Next up, though, we have a book that I wholeheartedly think is worth the hype, with an average star rating of 4.45 out of 5. It's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I don't really know how much I need to say about this book. It's so hyped on BookTube. I'm sure you've heard a million people talk about how great this book is, and all I can say is I agree. This is a hyped BookTube book that I absolutely loved. Potentially one of my all-time favorite books. I'm definitely going to have to reread it at some point. I might ask the people at my office book club if they've read this book, and if they haven't, this is going to be my pick for book club, because I just want everyone I know to read this book because I loved it. I thought it was moving, it was fun to read, it was interesting, it had twists, it made me cry. Amazing book. Definitely worth being on this list. Read it if you haven't, because it's amazing. And lastly, on the highest rated books that I've read. Technically this isn't a book, it's more so an essay or a novella, I guess. This is another work on this list that I have mixed feelings about, and that is We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which has a rating of 4.43. Now, I had to read this for one of my classes on college in the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program, and when I read it, I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. However, I then found out after I read that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is transphobic, which really just ruined this for me, because you can't be a feminist and say that you don't think trans women have the right to their own gender identity. Because, listen, if you identify as a woman, you're a woman and you should be included in feminism. It is not anyone's place to dictate somebody else's gender identity or gender expression. And to see someone who is so outspoken about women's rights hold oppressive beliefs towards trans women is incredibly disappointing. And trans exclusionary feminism is not real feminism. And I don't want to take advice from somebody who claims to be a feminist but is exclusionary, because that's not what feminism is about. And it's really disappointing because this was a well-written piece. But once again, the author, being a transphobe, kind of ruins the book's literary merit, which is disappointing. Just disappointing. It's kind of sad that so many of the highest rated books that I've read had to have an asterisk attached. But I guess if there's one thing you should take away from this, it's that The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is great, and you should read it if you haven't. Alright, so let's move on to the lowest rated books that I've read. And surprise, surprise, the lowest rated book I've ever read is Pamela by Samuel Richardson, which has an average star rating of 2.79. That is extraordinarily low. That is not even close to anything else. That is a really low rating. I have an entire rant review about Pamela that you can watch. Link in the card. I always forget which side it's on. It's up there somewhere if you want to go watch my entire review on Pamela. Basically, this is a classic novel from the 1700s that many people consider to be the worst novel ever written. It's extremely offensive with its depiction of sexual harassment and the main character eventually marrying her abuser, which is not great, to say the least. Gotta say, this book did not hold up at all. And Pamela is a book that's a little hard for me because do I feel like Pamela was god-awful? Yes and no. I feel like the book was written fine. It wasn't painful to get through. I think had this book ended with Mr. B dying and Pamela escaping this abusive situation, it would have been a great book. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. I also want to jump ahead a little bit here because another work in my top 5 lowest rated on my red shelf is An Apology for the Life of Mrs. Shamala Andrews by Henry Fielding, average rating 3.28, which is a satire of Pamela. In its time, Pamela was extremely popular, and it also had some people who hated it, and I think you can guess where Henry Fielding fell on that issue. I do understand why this is rated low, because I think Fielding criticizes Pamela, in my opinion, for all the wrong things. Basically, his point is that he doesn't believe that anyone could actually be as virtuous as Pamela, but he doesn't really criticize the sexual abuse as much, and he relies on a lot of body sexual humor, which I just don't find funny, so I do understand why this is also rated pretty low. Next in the lowest rated books I've ever read is a book that I read when I was in middle school. It was a very long time ago, which is Little Women and Me by Logan Bretz Logstead, which has an average rating of 3.02. I rated this book 2 stars. It has been a long time since I read it, but I do sort of remember why I did not like this book. Basically, the premise of this book is a modern day teenager is transported into the book Little Women as the 5th March sister. And the reason that I disliked this book is because the author effectively changes the end of Little Women. And I hated the changes that she made. Personally, I think Little Women ended perfectly. I think all the sisters ended up with who they should have ended up with. I know that's a hot take. A lot of people don't agree, but that's how I feel. And to have this author rewrite the ending of Little Women so her ship could end up together, when really that ship would never make each other happy, was annoying to me, and I did not like this book. Next, with an average star rating of 3.14 out of 5, is Pasadena by Sherry L. Smith. This is a young adult mystery thriller that, again, I read years ago. I was probably in like the 8th or 9th grade when I read this. I thought I still owned the book, but I don't see it on my shelves, so I must have unhauled it at some point. This follows a teenage girl whose friend dies. I believe she's found dead in her swimming pool, and our main character is convinced that she was murdered. She didn't actually kill herself like the police say she did, and so she wants to prove what really happened. I don't remember a lot about the plot of this book, but I do remember that the ending was bad. I did not think it was a good ending at all, and really the only thing I remember about this book is that the ending was incredibly disappointing and kind of made me feel like I wasted my time reading this. So again, I understand why this is rated low. Next up is Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alam with an average rating of 3.23. I do own this book, but it's at the bottom of this stack right here, and I am not going to lift all the books on top to pick it up because it's at the very bottom of this stack and I just don't want to deal with that right now. I had to read this book for a class I took on writing the literary review. It had just been released and I was assigned to review this book. And I did not enjoy it. I think this is a very divisive book because I've seen people on BookTube give this book 5 stars, say that they love it, and other people who say they thought this book was actual trash. Overall, I thought this book was very disappointing, and I do think it's improperly marketed by the publisher. Basically, this book follows a white couple and their 2 children who rent a house on Long Island, and while they are there, New York City is being ravaged by blackouts. Seems like an end of the world situation is going on, and this elderly black couple who are the owners of this house show back up saying, "We've just fled from New York. Can we stay here?" And it's about them all together in this house. This book is marketed as a thriller. I think it leans much more towards literary fiction, and generally I don't like literary fiction because I find literary fiction pretentious most of the time. Ruman Alam spends a lot of time in this book talking about sex and bodily functions, which I personally just find disgusting and like you're trying too hard to be edgy when really you're just being gross. I don't need to hear about this guy masturbating and what his penis looks like. That's disgusting. The book has a lot of suspense, but there's no payoff for that suspense. The ending is very unsatisfying, nothing is resolved, and that just made me feel like, why did I read this book? What was the point if we were never going to find out what was going on? I think marketing this as a thriller was not a good idea because it really should have been marketed, in my opinion, as a literary fiction. It was just not for me, but like I said, some people loved this book. Maybe you will like it. It's a love it or hate it kind of book. And I know that was 5. However, I do want to mention the next lowest rated book I've read, The Elizas by Sarah Shepard, which has an average rating of 3.3, because I hated this book. I think out of all of the books that I just mentioned, this is the one that I disliked the most. This book just irritated me. I thought it was badly written. I thought it was weird. It was sometimes casually offensive. The main character, Eliza, she sucks. I couldn't stand her. Her love interest, kind of creepy, and I don't think there's really anything that's that good about this book. I'm gonna link my Goodreads review below where I just tear this book to shreds. I used to really like Sarah Shepard when I was in high school. I liked Pretty Little Liars. I read some of her other books. But this one is just actively bad. I'm sorry, it's not a good book. And I just had to shout this out because this book, in my opinion, definitely deserves low Goodreads rating. It's not good. It's a bad book. Just plain bad. I don't know if there was anything about this book that I liked, other than the concept. So friends, those are the highest and lowest rated books that I have ever read according to Goodreads. Let me know, were you surprised to see how some of these books were rated? I would really like to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I post new videos every single Wednesday. My social media links are in the description if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a dazzling rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.